The gift of the Magi, $1.87. That was all. She had put in aside one cent and then another in her careful buying of meat and one other food. They were counting 3 times, $1.87, and the next day would be Christmas. There was nothing to do but fall on the bed and cry, so they did it. Well, the lady of the home is slowly growing quieter. We can look at the home furnished room at cost of $8 a week. There is a little more to say about it. In the hall below was a letter box too small to hold a letter. There was an electric bell, but it could not make a sound. Also there was a name beside the door, Mr. James Dillingham Young.
When the name was placed there, Mr. James Dillingham Young was being paid $30 a week. Now when he was being paid only $20 a week, the name seemed too long and important. It should perhaps have been Mr. James Young. But when Mr. James Dillingham Young entered the furnished rooms, his name became very short indeed. Mr. James Dillingham Young put her arms warmly about him and called him Jim. You have already met her. She is Della. Della finished her crying and cleaned the marks of it from her face. She stood by the window and looked out with no interest. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 with which to buy Jim a gift. She had put aside as much as she could for months. With this result, $20 a week is not much. Everything had cost more than she had expected. It always happened like that. Only $1.87 to buy a gift for Jim. Her Jim. She had many happy hours planning something nice for him, something nearly good enough, something almost worth the honor of belonging to Jim. There was a looking glass between the window of the room. Perhaps you have seen the kind of looking glass that is placed in $8 furnished rooms. It was very narrow. A person could see only a little of himself at a time. However, if he was very thin and moved very quickly, he might be able to get a good view of himself. Della, being quite thin, and had mastered this art. Suddenly she turned from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brightly, but her face had lost its power. Quickly she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its complete length. The James Dillingham Youngs were very proud of 2 things which they owned. One thing was Jim's gold watch. It had once belonged to his father, and long ago it had belonged to his father's father. The other thing was Della's hair. If a queen had lived in the room near theirs, Della would have washed and dried her hair where the queen could see it. Della knew her hair was more beautiful than any queen's jewels and gifts. If a king had lived in the same house with all his riches, Jim would have looked at his watch every time they met. Jim knew that no king had anything so valuable.
So now there was beautiful hair fell about her, shining like a falling stream of brown water. It reached below her knee. It almost made itself into a dress for her, and then she put up all her head again, nervously and quickly. Once she stopped for a moment and stood still while a tear or 2 ran down her face. She put on her brown coat. She put on her old brown hat. With the bright light still in her eyes, she moved quickly out of the door and down to the street, where she stopped. The sign said, Mr. Sofroni, hair articles of all kinds. Up to the 2nd floor, Della ran and stopped to get her breath. Mr. Sofroni, large, too white, cold-eyed, looked at her. Will you buy my hair? Asked Della. I buy hair, said Mr. Sofroni. Take off your hat and let me take a look at it. Down fell the brown waterfall. $20, said Mr. Sofroni, lifting